So that's one of the big things, is that when it comes to addressing populist rhetoric, one of the only things that Donald Trump has done is promise to do more corporate tax cuts and appoint the richest person in the world to be in charge of cutting government corruption. I'll watch I Confront Cenk Uygur by David Pakman. Here we go. It's a little off-center on mine.
I'm so glad to have an opportunity.
It's a little off-center on mine, so forgive me.
To just have you on and to talk directly with you. You know, last time we had you on, you were on with Destiny, and we talked about some of the things we're going to talk about today, but I just want to talk to you directly. I want to first just kind of explain my understanding of the controversy that's surrounding you. And if I get anything wrong, you tell me. This all kind of started with some tweets involving Don Jr. and Elon Musk. We talked about it, where you expressed willingness to work with whoever if you can accomplish the things that you believe are worth accomplishing. We talked a little bit about whether it's realistic or naive to think these people will help us do that, but that was sort of like part one. You appeared with Charlie Kirk at America Fest with Turning Point USA. We'll talk about the content of that, but you've also been criticized by some just for appearing there, like just that your presence there was the problem rather than your goals or being there. People are talking about a political 180 like Dave Rubin, which you've explained is not at all what this is. And then I've also seen, in preparing for our talk today, some conversations you had with folks that I think you were previously well acquainted and friendly with that are seeming way less friendly right now for reasons we can talk about. And a lot of people that say they are on the left don't like what you're up to. Is that a fair assessment of kind of where we are right now?
Yeah, I mean, the devil's in the details, and that's why we're having this conversation. But as a summary of where people think it stands, yeah, I think that's relatively right.
Here's my view after, knowing you for, I think 16 or years or something like that at this point, reviewing the appearance, reviewing everything you've said. I don't think there's any problem with going on right-wing shows or appearing at America Fest in principle. I think we should try to talk to the other side. My goal would be try to poach their audiences, try to expose Trump's not really the populist he claims to be or whatever. I think there's no issue there whatsoever. If I were to just jump to my concern, it would be all the evidence to me points to these are obviously not good partners in the things we want to achieve. I'll give you an example. Of course, I want to cut military spending, Pentagon. You and I have talked about it. Why wouldn't we work with whoever wants to do that? At the same time, no matter what shows up on Twitter, it's hard to imagine that Pete Hegseth, Elise Stefanik, Huckabee, and Mike Waltz are ever going to be involved in actually doing that. And so for me, it's more about how realistic is this thing? And is there a risk that your presence through no fault of your own is used simply to degrade the left with no real shot at improving anything? That's where I would place my concern, bearing in mind that I agree with a lot of what you're doing and what you're saying.
Yeah. So let me start by acknowledging that I get why people are concerned. Like when you see a pattern, and we've seen Dave Rubin do it and others, Tulsi
By the
Gabbard
way,
do it.
I wouldn't fully agree with this. So David Pakman's saying, listen, I think that what you're advocating for is fine, but like we're not going to see military spending cut by Pete Hegseth. So even though your intentions are noble and what you're saying is good, it's whatever. I don't think what Cenk Uygur is saying is good. I think a lot of the points that he's making are really stupid and vapid, and I think that he's shirking responsibility off of who is now the president of the United States like 90% of the time in order to cozy up to MAGA. Like the fact that even on January 6th when he tweeted out the electors tweet, like that was fine until the end where he was like, and it's like kind of bleak. And it's like, it's more than that. It's more than that, and everyone knows it's more than that, but you're pulling punches on Trump right now. Like we shouldn't be pulling punches on Trump right now because it's like it's an authoritarian takeover. That's exactly what this presidency is. And Cenk Uygur and especially Anna Kasparian are pretending like it's not, and that is not helpful to the left. It's not helpful strategy because we know that MAGA is not concerned about policy. So why the fuck, they're going to sell you out the moment that they can whenever you stop deciding to kiss Donald Trump's feet.
etc.
Yep.
And you see what appears to be the first step there, that your mind goes to the second, the third, and the 18th step. And so, like, if you're on the left and you're just see us doing this peripherally, or you hear it on a different show and they showed you a 15-second clip or something, I get why you'd be concerned, right?
Yep.
Now, I've been as clear as anyone can possibly be that is not the path we're taking. and I kind of tore Dave Rubin's head off, and Piers Morgan suggested that we make up. I've got no interest in that. And what's hilarious is people tune into the Young Turks live at
Well,
6
because
o'clock.
also it's not politically advantageous for Uygur to cozy up to Dave Rubin, because Dave Rubin isn't anybody. Like, Dave Rubin isn't a significant name in today's politics anymore, I don't think. Like, he's kind of just like a pissant that no one respects after the Tenet Media stuff. So, yeah, obviously Cenk's not going to want to cozy up to Dave Rubin. Dave Rubin serves no political ends to him. But the people that he's cozying up to are like Trump campaign officials, which are worse than Dave Rubin.
Eastern every day, and they go, wait, I don't get it. Where's the right wing turn? They're saying things that are like super progressive, populist, left wing.
Yeah, they're not saying anything that's super. It's been a while since I've watched a full Young Turks broadcast, to be fair, but it feels like they're not really. They are definitely pulling their punches on the right. They are definitely moving back from normal left-wing rhetoric, and they're moving really heavily into populist rhetoric. But left-wing rhetoric and populist rhetoric don't like necessarily hold hands. Populist rhetoric kind of transcends the left-right paradigm, because Donald Trump is a super hard populist, and all of his supporters are super hard populists. So when we say that you're like curtailing your rhetoric to fit in with the right wing, it's that you're just hammering in the populist rhetoric and acting like you share that in common with the right when you don't.
What the hell are these guys talking
Well,
about?
you share it with the right-wing rhetoric, but the right doesn't actually believe anything that they say, is the point.
Right? So I would ask you to not believe people with different incentives. And what's really interesting, David, is that when I go on right-wing shows and other comments, tons of comments that I get is, wait a minute, I think right-wing media lied to me. That's right-wingers saying it. Because they say, I just saw like 15-second clip of you saying something outrageous or something that I totally disagree with that they view to be outrageous, right? But when I see you in a conversation, the left is not at all what I thought it was, right? Because the right
Because Cenk Uygur isn't the left, by the way. So also, Cenk Uygur bringing MAGA over to what Cenk Uygur represents as the left isn't a move away from most of the bad shit. Like, it may make them a hair more charitable towards trans people, maybe a hair more charitable towards or a hair less charitable towards the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, maybe. But then they're still going to be really hard on draining the swamp, which, by the way, Donald Trump views draining the swamp as firing the attorney general who won't do his bidding when they're pressured. Like, when Donald Trump uses the anti-corruption rhetoric, it's for corrupt ends. Donald Trump is corrupt, using anti-corruption to be corrupt. So when Cenk Uygur is trying to bring the left to him and bring the right to him, what you're doing is eliminating any actual establishment that can fight against corrupt threats like Donald Trump.
shows have
and you're just using like populist rhetoric to brainwash people into thinking that Donald Trump can actually do anything that's populist, when he's using populist rhetoric to be hyper corrupt.
Historically have framed the left as the most extreme, that everyone on the left thinks that, fill in the blank, that we should release all the prisoners and not, do anything about crime, and whatever thing you could imagine that's the most extreme thing on the left. Almost all the right wing previously believed that was the entirety of the left, everyone who voted for Biden, Kamala Harris, etc. So when they see us doing this, they're like, oh, wow. And that's ironically now the left wing shows are doing the same thing as the right wing shows did. Show 15-second clip and go, when you see a slight disagreement there, oh, that's it, he's a Nazi, he's fascist, etc. So I understand people who are misled by that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now when you get to the real things that you're talking about, David, so how did this start, and what am I seeing that others aren't seeing potentially? So it started when I started running against Biden in the primary, just to try to knock him out. You remember, of course, that. And at the time, you remember a lot of people said, oh, Cenk, you're crazy. Joe Biden is young and dynamic and the best Democrat to beat Trump. I mean, I had huge debates over that, including with Destiny and so many others, right? So we were 100% right about that. But what happened is I go on the right-wing shows and by the way, can I just tell you, why did I go on right-wing shows to try to knock Biden out of a Democratic primary? because mainstream media never pays attention to the left. But if you say something on a right-wing show, mainstream media goes, "Oh, that's so important. Oh my God, I saw it on a right-wing show." It's
well, the idea is that you were undermining the candidate. Like the idea that it was a sure thing that Biden was going to step down from the race, or that he would that like Kamala Harris would take his place. Which, by the way, you didn't support Kamala Harris taking his place either. To be clear, so the fact that you're banking on this like 1 in a million thing happening. That did end up happening, and you're saying that it was that you were somehow good for the party in that. No, you were criticizing our candidate. What if Joe Biden didn't want to step down? Then you just like completely fucked over our chances of beating him. Like if you're shitting on the Democratic candidate, and he doesn't step down, not like you are influencing people not to vote for Joe Biden by encouraging him to step down. Now, ultimately, whether or not that was a good idea or not, I don't know. In hindsight, I mean, it obviously didn't win us the election. I don't know if it was a good idea for Joe Biden to step down or not, or if it was a good idea for him. Like, I don't know if that would have upped our chances of winning the election or not. I'd say probably, but at the same time, like, the best idea would just to not have Biden run at all. Like, the best idea would have been encouraging Biden not to run for a second term before he announced that he was running for the second term. But to act like your rhetoric helped us win the election when A, we didn't win the election, and B, if this 1 in a million thing didn't happen, then you would have completely fucked us. I wouldn't give Cenk Uygur credit for that.
So important, right? And I was able to bounce from there onto mainstream media, not me personally, but that idea, and it did help to knock Biden out, and that did help the Democratic Party. So
Maybe
Kamala had run a better campaign, or if she just finished running a better campaign, we would have been able to beat Trump, etc. But so I started seeing, though, when I went on.
By the way, I think that Kamala Harris was completely dead in the water. Almost any candidate that the Democrats ran. Oops, my bad. You watched him. You just heard him talk. You didn't watch him talk for a second. My bad. I'm pretty sure that almost any candidate that the DNC could have run, Biden, Harris, fucking Buttigieg, AOC, whichever like Bernie Sanders, whatever. We were fucked because Democrats, quote unquote, created inflation, and everyone noticed it, and everyone was fucked over by it. So whatever incumbent party had the office right now was not going to win re-election. Like, that's almost certain. And Kamala Harris had half of a campaign. Like, it didn't matter. Like, we can't say that Kamala Harris should have just like ran a better campaign. The fact that she performed as well as she did in the first place with half of the time that Donald Trump had was good. It's just the fact that, I mean, it's not like Donald Trump ran a good campaign. He was like fucking isolating Puerto Rico. He was like saying a bunch of weird shit about Hannibal Lecter. He had so many points to hit on himself. He fucking shit himself in the debate with Kamala Harris. It's not like he ran such a good campaign that Kamala Harris's good campaign was just not good enough. It's that Democrats couldn't have won, and Republicans were guaranteed this election, almost certainly.
There is, wait a minute, this right-wing base is not the same base that it was before. And David, by now I figured out why. Okay, because in the old days, they only watched Fox News, so you couldn't talk to them. They were Fox News talking point machines, right? I heard from Sean Hannity that corporate tax cuts help the middle class. No, they don't. What are you talking about, right? Yeah. But now they're getting their news not from angels, but they're getting their news from dozens of different shows. And some of them are anti-war, some of them are still pro-war.
He's wrong. He's wrong. This is wrong. Republicans, modern day MAGA, are not getting their news from a billion different sources, and they're watching a billion different... They are getting their news from Donald Trump. Whatever Donald Trump says, they'll suck it out of his teeth like he's a fucking mother cow. They're not getting their news of like, oh, I get some stuff from Newsmax, I get other stuff from Twitter, I get other stuff from Piers Morgan. This isn't MAGA. As soon as Newsmax or Twitter or whoever the fuck they're listening to disagrees with Donald Trump or gets a nod of disapproval from Donald Trump, they are cut out. Their career is over. So it's not that they're getting their news from a multitude of sources and they're just so happening to arrive at populist rhetoric. It's that Donald Trump is feeding them every single thing that they believe, and Donald Trump is using populist rhetoric to accelerate his corruption. That's it. That's all it is.
Some are this, some are that. And now what I'm seeing in the right wing is they've begun to open up their mind in a way that we are not familiar with.
You're so wrong. Are you seriously saying that MAGA has an open mind? Are you insane?
So when I go and tell the left wing, no, they're beginning to open their mind, they think of the past and they think,
you're unhinged.
Oh, hell no, this guy's got to be.
You actually think that MAGA, led by Donald Trump, is opening their mind to left-wing ideas. Like, this is psychosis. It's either, like, Cenk Uygur is like, actually psychotic, or he's, like, grifting. I can't tell. I can't tell which one. I like to think that he's grifting just because I can't think that he's, like, actually this far gone. There's no shot that MAGA is open to left-wing ideas. I don't know where you're getting this. Donald Trump literally spent the tail end of his campaign calling the left the enemy from within. What the fuck do you think you're talking about?
Be the biggest sucker on planet Earth is super naive. All the right wingers I've known my whole life never have open minds, and they're this, that, and other thing. Well, I'm here
MAGA
to
doesn't have an open
you're
mind.
seeing
You're
it
just
wrong,
insane.
Okay, and so there's a lot of populists in those hills, but because they're right wing populists doesn't mean they agree with us on everything. It doesn't mean.
No, here's the point. Name one thing that any MAGA supporter like meaningfully disagrees with Donald Trump on. It's just they're getting their talking points from Donald Trump. And unless you think you're going to move Donald Trump over on populist rhetoric, which I'm pretty sure even Cenk Uygur thinks that Donald Trump doesn't genuinely believe everything that he says, you're not going anywhere. This isn't getting us anywhere.
Mean that they are going to turn around and be like, oh my God, you're right. We should have full trans rights. No, what that means is right-wing, like populism, the where it intersects is anti-war, anti-corruption. And by the way, even on that stuff, guys, I get it. Yes, Trump is perfectly corrupt and they voted for him anyway. But by the way, so is Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. I know that breaks a lot of people's hearts, but they've gorged on billions of dollars in corporate cash. Establishment Democrats and establishment Republicans invented corruption, right? And they bathed in corruption. So yeah, of course Trump is also corrupt, but at least that base has an instinct of being anti-corrupt.
No, they don't. The MAGA, you're saying, of course Donald Trump is corrupt because he came out of the RNC, but he also built the party that is leading the Republican Party out of the corrupt Republicans, even though they're building their party and getting every opinion that they ever have out of a like the most corrupt Republican we've ever seen in our life. Like, this is just bullshit. This is wholly and utterly bullshit.
And so then when I go on the shows, I say, hey guys, for example, Elon Musk, remember he's a donor, he's Trump's largest donor, and they go, well, yeah, that's true. And remember how you should be wary of the donor class. And they're like, yeah, that's true.
But Cenk, where's the criticism of Donald Trump? You say, hey, be careful of the donor class, and they're like, oh, okay, yeah. And then they'll just criticize Elon Musk. They're not going to criticize Donald Trump for picking Elon Musk to fucking shadow run the government. They're going to criticize Elon Musk for pointing him in the wrong direction. It's not anti-corruption. It's sucking off Donald Trump and making excuses for him at every fucking step. You're not moving anybody. You're just giving them more excuses to use for Donald Trump. It's like, oh, that wasn't actually Donald Trump who wanted to do that. That was actually the donor class. But I mean, Donald Trump ended up firing him anyway. Like, you know that they're never going to hold Donald Trump to account for anything.
In the old days, David, they wouldn't have said that's true. They would have been like, no way, our donors are angels and they're the greatest thing on earth. And you're the only donor that's a problem is George Soros and the unions, right? So it's a different dynamic. Like, there's so many things that you
it's not resulting in them criticizing the person taking the fucking money from the donors.
I know I'm taking a while, but I do want to address the other things because the idea that you're helping them or legitimizing them is absurd.
Okay. There's sort of like a three-part thing that I think will build to the most important aspect of what you just said. So first of all, I think you are doing an awesome job at correctly identifying something that's a major problem for.
And please, Pakman, don't just suck his dick the whole time. I know you've been pals, but please don't hurt me like this. I like you, Pakman. Please don't hurt my soul like this.
The left, and that explains a lot of the right's success, which is they aren't doing, at least right now, these toxic purity tests the way that some on the left do. You've identified the right. If you agree with them on 5% and you're kind of sick of the other options, they welcome you, even if you disagree on 95% of stuff. A lot of the opposite of that is happening on the left. I think that's spot on, and I think it's awesome that you've identified that. I do want to talk a little bit about the whole look at how they've changed. And one of the things that during your appearance with Charlie Kirk that got some attention and that you focused in on as well is, look, they're booing Mitch McConnell and they're booing Dick Cheney. That you wouldn't have seen that in the past. I'm skeptical about reading too much into that for the following reason. I don't think they have any real idea why they're booing or they're not booing. Or what I mean is the following. Trump and Charlie Kirk right now are benefiting from saying we're different from the establishment, we're different from McConnell and Cheney or whatever. If they do a 180 on that today, at next week's AmFest, Charlie Kirk just leads the crowd in a cheer of Mitch McConnell. We got him back, guys. I don't think there's anything real about that. I think it's just something that they've decided we're going to say to create a distinction, whether there is a difference or not. So I'm worried about reading too much into they booed McConnell, because next week they'll cheer him if someone says to Trump, now we cheer McConnell.
Thank you.
You may agree,
Yes.
you may disagree. Let me then do the...
Yeah, it's because look at how they're fucking cheering the Speaker of the House. Because now he's a Donald Trump dick suck. Look at how they were booing RFK Jr. for being insane, and then as soon as RFK Jr. sells out to him, now that he's like the fucking darling, and he's going to save us from the evil, scary like corporations. Like, it's just about bending the knee to Donald Trump. It's about who Donald Trump says we can boo and who we can't boo. They don't know why they're not booing. They're not booing Mitch McConnell because of some principled stance against like the establishment or whatever. They're booing him because he wouldn't bend the knee to Donald Trump. Because he said that he would vote for a Senate conviction against Donald Trump.
Part 3 of kind of where my mind is on this. I would argue that whether or not they cheer McConnell or whatever, even if we agree about the problem, the risk of the populist rhetoric as a uniting force is that the solutions are different, even if we agree on the problem. So I'll give you an example. You, I, some of the people at AmFest, we're worried about the power of the establishment and elites, the recalcitrant centers of power that are corrupt, and we're sick of them and all of that. We would identify the problem with almost the exact same language that the crowd at AmFest would. The problem is when you say, okay, left-wing populist, what's your solution? We talk about social democracy, curbing corporate power, using regulations. They will still say the solution is tax cuts for the rich and corporations and all the same stuff. So
I don't agree. Their answer isn't going to be tax cuts for the rich. Their answer is going to be cut the entire federal government, get rid of all of the 3-letter agencies, and make us a king. That's what they're going to say to stop corruption, is that make the Trump family a king and make it so they can rule over our government without the pesky 3-letter agencies getting in the way, without pesky Congress getting in the way. Like, they're not going to say tax cuts for the rich is going to solve corruption. They're going to say Donald Trump needs to eliminate most of the federal government and just serve as king.
Instinct is, and tell me if I'm wrong. I want to hear, I'm open to having my mind change. My thought is, even if we really were in agreement about the problem, once we get to solutions, we're not even at all on the same page.
No,
I
even
think you are wrong.
remotely.
And it's very understandable, because what you're describing is exactly what's happened throughout history, right?
Okay.
So that's the media and political ecosystem that we all grew up in. So again, that's why I understand people's concern. Like, whoa, wait, no way. All the Republicans I've known my whole life are immovable, right? And all they're ever going to do is corporate tax cuts and tax cuts for the rich. So here's where it's really important to do nuance and understand the new landscape.
Okay,
right?
tell me.
So first of all, on Mitch McConnell and Dick Cheney,
This is all going to be completely irrelevant and completely fucking stupid, because one of Donald Trump's main promises, one of the only legislative promises that he did, was to promise to renew the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. That's one of the only pieces of legislation he came out and said that he'd do. So why are you acting like it's a completely new landscape when Donald Trump's one of his only legislative promises was to do the exact same thing? Stop.
No, they loathe them. You guys are wrong in thinking that it's a trick. I've now talked to
I can't watch this. Fuck Cenk Uygur. He's I can't tell if he's a grifter or psychotic, but it's gaslight. I can't watch this. He's just, it triggers me too much. I can't listen to him speak. He's so righteous and he thinks he's doing the right thing, but he's just at best case scenario, he's a useful idiot. Oh my God. I can't handle it. I mean, one of the most self-evident things is that all of the populist rhetoric from the right, all that led to was the fucking Doge thing, which was led by Elon Musk, one of the people that Cenk is calling the donor class. So that's one of the big things, is that when it comes to addressing populist rhetoric, one of the only things that Donald Trump has done is promise to do more corporate tax cuts and appoint the richest person in the world to be in charge of cutting government corruption.